The morning was cold, and the wind carried dust across the empty road. Most people had already gone to work or school. In the corner of a quiet street, just outside the rich part of town, two little children stood near a broken fence. They looked scared, shaking from both cold and fear. Their clothes were thin, their shoes worn out. One boy and one girl, twins, maybe around 10 years old, kept yelling at passing cars, "Please help. Please, our mom is dying." The boy shouted, his voice breaking. The girl held tightly to his arm. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them. Her eyes searched every car, every window, hoping someone would notice. But no one stopped. A woman in a fancy car rolled her window up. A man in a suit looked away. One driver even honked to make them move from the road, but the twins didn't move. They had nowhere else to go. Their mother had collapsed in the alley behind the wall, and they didn't know what else to do. They had no phone, no family close by, only each other. A few more minutes passed. Then a black car slowly turned the corner. It was a quiet, expensive-looking car with dark windows. It came to a stop near the twins. For a second, everything went quiet, even the wind. The driver's side window slowly rolled down. Inside sat a man in his late 40s. His face was calm but hard, like someone who didn't smile often. He wore a black coat, and his hands rested on the wheel. The twins didn't know who he was. They didn't care. They ran up to the window. "Please, sir, our mom's not moving. She's dying." The boy said. The man didn't answer. He just stared. His eyes moved slowly from the kids' faces to the dirt on their clothes, to the fear in their voices. Something inside him stirred, a feeling he hadn't had in years. Maybe he remembered something. Or maybe he was just shocked to see two children begging like this right outside a rich neighborhood. He had money, a big house, no family, but no one had ever screamed for his help like this. The girl grabbed his sleeve through the window. "Please, sir, please," she whispered. Still silent, the man slowly opened his door and stepped out. He didn't say a word, just followed the twins down the alley. The alley smelled like garbage and wet leaves. A few stray cats ran when they came close. Behind a dumpster on the cold cement ground lay a woman. She looked like she hadn't eaten properly in days. Her skin was pale, her eyes half open. Her chest moved up and down, but very slowly. One arm was outstretched toward the sky like she had been trying to call someone before falling. She was making our breakfast, the girl whispered. Then she just fell. The man looked at her, this woman who had nothing but still tried to care for her children. He knelt beside her and touched her forehead. It was cold. Too cold. He checked her pulse the way he'd seen doctors do in movies. It was weak, but still there. She was alive, barely. He pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking now. He called for an ambulance. The twins sat beside their mother. They held her hands, even though she didn't move. The boy looked up at the man and said quietly, "She always said rich people never stop to help." But I didn't want to believe her. The man's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say. He looked around at the trash, at the broken nuns. Bricks, at the old cans stacked against the wall. This place wasn't made for children. It wasn't made for anyone. In the distance, the sound of sirens began to rise. The man stood, still quiet, still thinking. He had built his life on business, money, silence. He didn't believe in miracles, but something about this moment made him feel small, like he had missed something big all his life. Maybe helping people wasn't just for heroes in movies. Maybe it started like this, one moment, one choice. The ambulance arrived. The paramedics rushed to the woman and checked her breathing. They placed her on a stretcher and moved quickly. "Are you family?" one of them asked the man. He shook his head. then looked at the twins. They were still holding their mother's hands as the medics lifted her. "She's our only family," the boy said. The paramedic nodded and turned away. The girl grabbed the man's hand. "Will you come with us?" she asked. He looked at her, this tiny girl with big, tired eyes and dirt on her face, and nodded slowly. The back doors of the ambulance closed. The man followed behind in his car, driving slower than usual. Something had changed inside him, and it all began with two kids shouting on the side of a road, begging strangers to save their mom. The hospital lights were bright, too bright for the twins. They stayed close together in the waiting area, holding hands tightly. The girl leaned her head on her brother's shoulder. Neither of them spoke. They just stared at the hallway, where the nurses had taken their mother. Their eyes were tired, scared, and full of questions. The rich man sat a few seats away from them. He had followed the ambulance in his car and now waited silently. He looked at the children every few minutes but didn't say anything. He had never done something like this before. Not in years, not since. Well, not since he was a child himself. Something about these kids brought old feelings back to life. Nurse came out and spoke quietly to another nurse at the desk. They didn't even glance at the twins, just shook their heads and whispered things like, "She's back again," and still no ID. The man listened closely. He stood up and walked to the desk. "How is she?" he asked. The nurse looked up, surprised. "And you are?" "I brought them in," he said, pointing gently toward the twins. "I found them on the street. Their mother had collapsed." The nurse softened a little. "She's stable for now. Severe exhaustion, dehydration, low blood sugar, possibly malnourished. We're running more tests. But she's lucky someone called in time. Can I see her?" "Only family," she said. "Sorry, sir." He turned and looked at the twins again. They hadn't moved. He felt a strange ache in his chest. Then he asked, "What happens now?" The nurse gave a small shrug. "She wakes up soon. She can go home after treatment. If she doesn't, well, we'll see." "Do the kids have someone to stay with?" "I don't think they do." The nurse sighed. "Then it might be a case for child services. It happens a lot." The man nodded slowly, but didn't like how those words sounded. It happens a lot. Like this was normal. Like two kids almost losing their mother on a sidewalk was just another Tuesday. He walked back to the waiting area. The twins looked up at him, their eyes full of hope and fear. "Is she dead?" the boy asked quietly. "No," the man said. "She's alive. She's resting. The doctors are helping her." The girl's face shook like she was about to cry. But she didn't. She just closed her eyes and nodded. "Do you have anyone we can call?" the man asked gently. "Aunt, uncle, someone." The boy looked down at his shoes. "We have an aunt, but she lives far. We don't talk much. Does she know your mom is here?" "No phone," the girl whispered. "Ours broke months ago. Mom said we'd get a new one later." The man was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You can stay here for now. I'm not leaving until we know she's okay." The girl finally let out a shaky breath. She trusted him. Somehow, she felt safe. Around this quiet man, a few hours passed. Nurses came and went. Machines beeped. The kids fell asleep on the hard chairs, leaning on each other. The man sat near them, his coat folded over their shoulders like a blanket. He didn't sleep. He just watched. He didn't know why he stayed. He had money to make. Calls to return. Big house with no noise waiting for him. But something about this moment made all of that feel pointless. Finally, a doctor came out and spoke softly. "She's conscious," he said. "Still weak, but awake." The twins woke up instantly. "Can we see her?" the boy asked. "Soon," the doctor said. "But she's asking if the man Who helped is still here." The man raised his hand slightly. The doctor nodded. "She wants to talk to you first." The man stood up, unsure of what to say. He followed the doctor through the hallway and into a small room. The mother lay on the hospital bed, her eyes open, her skin still pale. But she smiled faintly when she saw him. "You stopped," she whispered. "You stopped when no one else did." He stepped closer. "I had to." "No," she said weakly. "You didn't. Most people drive past us. You didn't have to stop." "Thank you." The man didn't know how to respond. He just looked at her, then looked at the small photo she had taped to the inside of her blanket. A picture of the twins, smiling on a better day. "They need someone," she said, voice trembling. "I don't know how long I'll be in here. I'll stay with them," he said quietly. "They won't be alone." Tears filled her eyes. "Please, just keep them safe." He nodded, and for the first time in years, his eyes burned with emotion. He walked back to the waiting area, and the kids looked at him eagerly. "She's okay," he told them softly. "And she's proud of you. You saved her." The girl jumped up and hugged him tightly, her little arms wrapped around his waist, and she whispered, "Thank you." He didn't know it yet, but something had already started to change inside him and the twins. They had just met the one person who would never walk away. The man sat in his car, parked just outside the hospital. The sky was dark now, but he didn't turn on the engine. He didn't move at all. His hands rested on the steering wheel, but his mind was far away. Something inside him felt heavy and familiar. It wasn't just about the kids anymore. It was about him. About memories he had buried long ago. He could still hear the twins' voices in his head. "Please help our mom," they had cried. He could still see the girl's little arms wrapped around him, the boy's tired, trusting eyes. Why did it shake him so much? Because he had seen this before. Not the same children, not the same woman, but he had lived something just like it. He closed his eyes, and the memory hit him like a wave. He was only 9 years old when it happened. His mother had collapsed in a parking lot outside a store. She had worked all day, then walked miles to buy groceries. She fainted while carrying heavy bags. He remembered kneeling beside her, screaming for help. People walked past. Some looked. None stopped. He had cried louder, shaking her, begging strangers, "Please, help my mom." He remembered yelling, but no one came. No rich man stepped out of a car. No one called an ambulance. He remembered the way his mother's face looked, scared but trying to be strong. She had whispered, "It's okay, baby. I'm just tired." He remembered holding her hand until finally someone from the store came outside and called for help. He remembered that night at the hospital. The smell, the bright lights, the cold waiting room. The nurses who ignored him. He had sat alone, wishing someone would talk to him, ask if he was okay, offer him food, anything. But no one did. His uncle picked him up late that night, angry that he had caused trouble. That night changed him. He had promised himself never to be weak, never to be poor, never to be ignored again. And he kept that promise. He worked harder than anyone. He got rich, bought a mansion, started companies, and never looked back until today. Today, he saw 2 kids reliving the worst day of his life, and he couldn't walk away. Back in the hospital, the twins were sleeping on a small couch in the waiting room. He had told the nurse he would stay nearby, that he would handle anything the kids needed. And he meant it. But the question haunted him now. What exactly was he supposed to do? He had money. He had power. But he didn't know how to be a hero. He didn't know how to be a father. He barely knew how to be a friend. He had built walls around himself for so long, and now 2 small children were standing at the gates, asking to be let in. The next morning, he returned to the hospital with breakfast. Simple food, warm eggs, toast, and juice. When the twins saw him walk in with the tray, their faces lit up like sunshine. "You came back," the girl said, smiling. "Of course," he said softly. "I told you I would." They sat together in the corner of the room, eating quietly. The boy looked up at him and asked, "Do you have kids?" The man hesitated. "No," he answered. "Why not?" the boy asked. "I never thought I would," the man said, thinking carefully. "Maybe I was too busy. Maybe I was scared." Girl tilted her head. "You don't seem scary." He smiled for the first time. "I used to be, a little. But maybe not anymore." The boy pushed his juice toward him. "You can have some." "No, thank you," he chuckled. "That's for you." Later, the doctor said the children's mother needed a few more days of rest and full care. She still couldn't walk much, and she needed special food and medicine. The hospital couldn't let the kids stay inside for long. The man asked the doctor, "What happens if there's no family to take them?" The doctor looked uncomfortable. "Then Child Protection Services usually gets involved." He nodded slowly. "Can I keep them?" "Just for a few days, until their mom recovers." The doctor raised an eyebrow. "Are you related?" "No." "Are you a foster parent?" "No." "Then it's not so simple." The man pulled out his phone and made a call. Within an hour, a lawyer arrived. The man was used to solving problems with money and fast thinking, but this was different. These were kids' real lives, not numbers or contracts. Still, he wasn't going to let them be taken away. He sat back down beside the twins. "There's some paperwork," he told them, "but I'm going to take you somewhere safe. Just for a little while. Will we see?" "Mommy," the girl asked. "Every day," he promised. The boy looked up. "Why are you helping us?" The man paused, looking at both of them carefully. "Because," he said slowly, "once, a long time ago, I was you. And no one helped me." The kids didn't say anything, but the way they leaned closer to him said everything in just one day. They had gone from strangers to something more. And deep down, he knew this wasn't just about a few days. Something had changed. Something big, and for the first time in many years, he didn't feel alone anymore. The children's mother stayed in the hospital, her body still weak and needing care. The doctor said she would be fine, but only if she rested. She couldn't take care of the children for now. That meant someone had to. The rich man didn't wait for anyone else to step up. He filled out forms, showed his ID, and even called his lawyer again. Everything moved slowly, but finally. The hospital let him take the twins home with a promise to return every day so they could visit their mom when he brought them to his house. The kids' eyes went wide. They had never seen a home so big. It had tall windows, shiny floors, and even a garden with real flowers. The boy stood still for a moment, holding his sister's hand tightly. The girl whispered, "Are we allowed inside?" The man smiled gently. "Yes, this is your place too. For now." They stepped inside carefully, like they didn't want to break anything. The man noticed the way they looked around, not with excitement, but with fear. They weren't used to nice things. They were used to being told, "Don't touch that," or "Stay outside." He showed them to a guest room. It had 2 small beds, soft blankets, and a clean bathroom. The girl touched the pillow slowly, like it was something rare. The boy opened a drawer, then closed it right away, like he didn't want to get in trouble. "You don't have to be afraid," the man told them. "Nothing here will hurt you." That night, he made something simple for dinner. Just rice, eggs, and vegetables. He wasn't a good cook, but he tried. The kids ate every bite without saying a word. They didn't complain. They didn't ask for more. They ate like they hadn't had a full meal in weeks. After they finished, the boy asked, shyly, "Can we call our mom?" The man nodded and handed him his phone. The girl held it close as it rang. When their mom answered, both children cried. Not loud, just soft tears, the kind that come when someone you love finally speaks again. "I miss you, Mommy," the girl whispered. The man stepped outside to give them privacy. He stood in his garden, looking at the stars. He had lived in this house for 10 years. In all that time, he never shared it with anyone. No kids, no wife, no guests. It was just a big, quiet place. He thought he liked it that way, but now something felt different. The next day, he drove the kids back to the hospital. Their mother smiled weakly when she saw them. She reached out with her tired arms, and they ran to her. For a while, they just held each other. No one spoke. No one needed to. The man stayed near the door, watching. The mother looked up at him and said, "Thank you." He nodded. "They're safe." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I've tried so hard. I work night shifts. I clean buildings when everyone's asleep. I barely make enough for food and rent. I never wanted this for them." "I know," he said softly, "but you did your best. And they love you." She looked down. "I just don't want them to end up like me." "They won't," he said, meaning every word. When they left the hospital that day, the man stopped at a store and let the kids pick out some clothes. They didn't go wild. The girl chose a yellow dress and a small backpack. The boy picked a simple jacket and socks. That was all. No toys, no games, just what they needed. Later that evening, the man got a call. It was someone from Child Protective Services. "We heard about the children," the woman on the phone said. "We'll need to do a home check." He agreed right away. He had nothing to hide. But the moment he hung up, his chest felt tight. He knew how the system worked. Cold, slow, full of rules. Sometimes, even when a child was safe and happy, the system would move them anyway. He looked at the kids, who were sitting on the floor drawing with crayons. The girl had drawn their mom lying in bed with a rainbow over her. The boy had drawn a house that looked just like his. They were starting to feel at home, and he was starting to care more than he expected. The next morning, a woman came to his door. She was from the agency. She looked around the house, asked some questions, took notes. She wasn't mean, just professional. Still, the kids clung to his side like something might go wrong. "Do you want to stay here?" the woman asked the twins. They both nodded quickly. "Why?" she asked gently. The girl said, "He makes us feel safe." The boy added, "He listens." The woman nodded and smiled a little. "All right." After she left, the man let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He turned to the kids. "You did good." The girl looked up. "Will they take us away?" "Not if I can help it," he said. That night, while they slept, he sat alone. In the living room, the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful. For the first time in years, he felt like this big house wasn't just a place to hide. It was becoming something else. It was becoming a home. Days passed quickly. The twins slowly began to relax in the big house. The fear in their eyes started to fade. At first, they still whispered when they talked. They waited for someone to yell at them or send them away, but no one did. Instead, they were given warm food, clean clothes, and quiet nights with soft beds. They had never known life could feel like this. The man, who once lived in silence and routine, now woke up to the sound of little feet running across his hallway. He heard giggles and small voices in the morning instead of the ticking of clocks. At first, it felt strange, but slowly, it began to feel right. One morning, the girl handed him a drawing. It was made with crayons on white paper. She had drawn a man with gray hair, standing next to two smiling children. Behind them was a house with a red roof and a bright sun above it. Under the drawing, she wrote for simple words, "This is our dad." He stared at the picture for a long time. Something inside him moved, like a locked door opening, just a little. He smiled and gently touched the paper. "Thank you," he said, his voice quiet. "You're welcome," the girl replied shyly. "We made it together." The boy nodded. "You're nice to us, Ash. That means something." They didn't say it as a joke, Ash. They meant every word. Because to them, kindness wasn't normal. Being treated with care felt like a gift at the hospital. Their mother was getting better. She could now sit up and eat small meals. Every day, the man brought the twins to see her. He waited outside the room while they hugged her, told her stories, and showed her their drawings. The visits always ended with quiet tears, but also with hope. One afternoon, the mother asked to speak with him alone. He stepped into the room. While the kids played in the hallway, "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice still weak. "You gave them something I couldn't." "I didn't do anything special," he replied softly. "Yes, you did," she said. "You saw them, you listened. That's more than most." He didn't answer right away. He just looked down, remembering how no one had listened to him once. How no one helped his own mother. "You don't have to do more," she said. "You've already done enough. When I get out, I'll take them back. We'll find a job again. We'll figure things out." He looked at her. She had strong eyes. She wasn't a weak woman. She was just tired, the kind of tired that comes from carrying too much for too long. "They love you," he said. "They talk about you every day. They're good kids," she whispered. "Better than I deserve." He shook his head. "You've done your best." She didn't respond, but her eyes filled with tears. That evening, back at home, the twins helped him cook dinner. It was a mess. The rice burned, the vegetables were too soft, and the kitchen ended up full of flour and sauce. But they laughed. For the first time, they laughed without fear. The man sat at the table and watched them. He had spent years eating alone, meals prepared by house staff, with no sound except the news on TV. But this noisy, imperfect meal felt better than any dinner he had ever had. After dinner, the girl asked, "Can we stay here forever?" He didn't know what to say until Mommy gets better. The boy added quickly. "Yes," he said, his voice quiet. "Until then." The girl looked up. "Will we be okay after that?" He paused. I think we'll find a way later." That night, while they slept, he sat in the living room and stared at the drawing again, the one where she called him Dad. No one had ever called him that before. He had never thought about being a father. He had always believed he wasn't made for it. But now, the thought didn't scare him. It felt possible. He called his lawyer again. He asked questions he never thought he'd ask. About guardianship, about family rights, about how to give the children a safe place, not just for now, but for the future. "Are you sure about this?" The lawyer asked. He looked at the drawing one more time. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I can't walk away." He wasn't trying to replace their mother. He respected her too much. But he knew deep in his heart, these kids had changed something inside him. They had cracked open a part of him that had been closed for years. This wasn't just about saving them anymore. They were saving him too. A few weeks had passed, and everything seemed calm on the outside. The children smiled more, slept better, and no longer jumped in fear when someone knocked on the door. They played in the garden, helped with cooking, and even learned to ride bicycles. The rich man, who once lived in silence, now laughed at their jokes and sat with them during bedtime stories. It looked like a happy, peaceful life, but peace never lasts forever. One cold morning, The man was making pancakes for the kids when the doorbell rang. He opened the door and saw a woman in a suit, holding a clipboard. Behind her stood two more people, one holding a file and the other wearing a badge. They were from Child Protection Services. "Good morning," the woman said politely. "We're here to follow up on the case involving the twins. We've received some reports and need to ask you a few questions. Stepped aside and let them in." The kids came running into the hallway, but stopped when they saw the strangers. Their eyes filled with fear again, like old wounds opening up. "Who are they?" the girl whispered, grabbing her brother's hand. "They're just here to talk," the man said softly. "It's okay." The woman knelt down to their level and gave a smile that didn't feel very warm. "Hi, sweethearts. We just want to make sure you're okay." The boy didn't say anything. The girl hid behind the man's leg. The woman stood up and looked at him. "We've had some concerns from someone at the hospital. They said the children's mother may not have agreed to leave them in your care permanently." He felt a chill go down his spine. "She's still recovering. Agreed I'd care for them until she was strong enough." "Yes, but until then, we need to follow procedures. There are forms missing. And technically, they are still considered unplaced minors." "What are you saying?" he asked. "We may have to move them into official care for now." The other woman said. The boy gasped. The girl started shaking her head quickly. "No," she cried out. "Please don't take us." The man stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "They are safe here. I have done everything right. I've taken care of them, kept them fed, warm, and in school. Their mother knows they're here. The kids are happy. Why would you take them now?" The woman frowned. "Because that's the law. Until legal custody is finalized, we can't leave them in a non-licensed home." The girl ran forward and wrapped her arms around the man's leg. "He's our dad now," she shouted. "Please, don't take us away." The room went silent. The woman hesitated. "That's not how this works, sweetheart." The boy stepped in front of his sister. "You're not taking us. We're staying." One of the workers sighed. "We don't want to scare them. We'll come back later with the proper forms. This visit is just the beginning." When they left, the man sat on the couch, holding his head in his hands. The children sat close to him, their faces pale and quiet. "They're going to take us?" the girl asked, her voice tiny. "No," he said. "I won't let them. But they said they can," the boy replied. "Even if we say no, I'll fight," the man said. "I'll do everything I can." That same evening, he drove to the hospital. The children's mother was awake, sitting in her bed with a book in her lap. When he walked in, she looked at him and saw the worry on his face. "What's wrong?" she asked. "They want to take the kids," he said. "The system wants to move them into foster care." Her hands trembled. No, they can't. You've done everything. They're safe with you." He sat down beside her. "Well, they said you never gave full permission. That legally, they're still in the system." She looked down, tears filling her eyes. "I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I didn't want to lose them. I didn't sign anything because I thought maybe they'd think I was giving them up." "You're not giving them up," he said gently. "But we need to protect them. We need something on paper. I can't lose them now either." She looked into his eyes and saw something she never expected. Love. Real love. Not just kindness or help, but someone who would walk through fire for her children. "I'll sign anything," she whispered. "Just promise me they won't forget me." "They could never forget you," he said. The next day, they met with lawyers. The mother gave written permission for the man to become the children's guardian. Not forever, but for now, till she could return home and take over again. When the agency returned a week later, the man was ready. He had documents. He had a lawyer by his side. But most of all, He had the truth and the love of 2 children who stood beside him. Unshaken, the woman in the suit looked at the paperwork, then at the children. This time, her smile was real. "Seems everything's in order," she said. "We won't be interfering anymore." When they left, the girl jumped into the man's arms. "You saved us again," she said. He hugged her tightly. "No," he whispered, "you saved me." And deep in his heart, he knew that nothing, not the law, not the system, not fear, could break the bond they had now. The hospital room was quiet, but the mother could hear her own heart beating. She sat up slowly, looking out the window. Birds flew past, and the sky was soft with morning light. She had been here for weeks now. Her body was getting stronger, but her heart was still full of fear. Every day, she wondered, will my children still love me? Will they forget me? She knew they were safe. The man had told her everything, how they laughed, how they helped in the kitchen, how they slept peacefully in their new beds. He had done more for them than anyone ever had. She should have been grateful. She was, but she also felt something heavy in her chest. Guilt. That evening, the man brought the twins to visit again. The girl walked in first, carrying a small flower in her hand. "Mommy," she said, running to the bed. The boy followed, holding a folded paper. "We made something for you." The mother's face lit up. Her children still looked at her with the same love they didn't forget. She pulled them into a gentle hug, tears falling without warning. The man waited by the door, letting them have their moment. The girl placed the flower near her pillow. "We missed you every day," she whispered. The boy handed her the paper. It was a letter written in big, careful letters. "We love you," it said. "You are our mommy. We're safe. He helps us. But we want you to come home." Her hands shook as she held the paper. She looked up at the man, her eyes wet. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. He stepped forward. "You don't have to say anything. Just get better." She nodded, her voice low. "I've been thinking every day about my life, about what happened, about what might have happened if you hadn't stopped that day." He didn't reply. He just listened. "I wasn't sick from drugs or alcohol," she said. "So many people assumed I was, even the nurses. But I wasn't. I was just tired. So tired. Working at night, walking long distances, skipping meals so the kids could eat. It finally caught up to me." "I believe you," the man said. "No. One else did," she whispered. "Thank you for believing me." The boy crawled onto the bed. "Mom, we told everyone the truth. We said you're not like that. We promised them." She held him close. "You didn't have to fight for me, baby. We wanted to," he said, "because you're strong." That night, after they returned home, the man sat by the fireplace while the twins slept. He looked at the drawing the girl had once given him, the one where she called him Dad. He still kept it on the table, next to a photo of them smiling in the garden. He thought about everything: the journey, the paperwork, the fear, the visits. The way the children now ran to him when they were scared. The way they smiled when he made their favorite meals. The way the house, once silent and cold, now felt like it had a heart. He never planned for any of this. The next morning, he took the kids to the hospital again. This time, they didn't visit for just a few minutes. They stayed the whole afternoon. The mother had grown stronger. She could sit longer, talk more, and even walk around a little with help. She looked like herself again. The doctor said she could be discharged in a few days. When she heard that, Agra clapped her hands. Yay! Mommy's coming home. But then everything went quiet. The boy asked, "Where's home now?" The mother looked at the man, then at her children. She spoke slowly, carefully. "I've been thinking about that too. "You'll come stay with us," the girl said, without hesitation. "There's a big room upstairs." The boy nodded. "We can all live together." The mother smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I don't want to ruin what you have. He's taking care of you like his own." "I don't want to get in the way." "You're not in the way," the man said gently. "You're their mother, and this can be your home too." She looked at him, surprised. "You mean that?" He nodded. "I've already spoken to the lawyer. We can set it up. You stay in the guest house while you get fully better. No pressure, no judgment, just rest. Be with them." The girl jumped up and hugged both of them at once. "Yay, we'll all be together." The boy whispered, "Best news ever." For the first time in a long while, the mother felt something warm grow in her chest. She didn't feel like a failure anymore. She felt like part of a family. A few days later, she left the hospital. The man drove them all home. She sat quietly in the front seat, looking out the window, holding her children's hands. When they arrived, she looked at the house again. Not with fear this time, but with hope. As they stepped inside, the girl ran ahead, showing her the flowers in the garden, the soft couches, the kitchen where they all cooked together. The boy opened the door to the guest house. "It's small but warm," he said. "We helped clean it." The mother smiled through her tears. "It's perfect." That night, after dinner, the four of them sat on the couch watching cartoons. The kids laughed. The mother rested her head on a soft cushion, and the man just watched them, quietly thankful. He had started this journey by accident, but now he couldn't imagine life without them, and none of them felt alone anymore. The wind was soft, and the sun was just rising when the man stepped into the garden with his coffee in hand. It was quiet, but not the kind of cold, lonely quiet he once knew. This was a peaceful quiet, the kind that comes after long nights and hard days when everything finally feels right. He looked around. Flowers bloomed near the fence, and a small swing the twins had begged him to build was gently swaying in the breeze. There were chalk drawings on the ground, stick figures, smiling suns, a big house, and under it, 3 simple words in shaky handwriting. "This is family." He smiled. Inside the house, the girl was already awake. She tiptoed into the kitchen and started setting the table. The boy soon joined her, still rubbing his eyes, his hair sticking up in all directions. Their mother came in last, slower than the kids, but walking without help now. She looked better every day. "Morning?" she said softly. "Morning," the man replied, handing her a warm cup of tea. They sat together as the kids told silly stories, laughed about nothing, and fought gently over who got the last pancake. It wasn't perfect, nothing was, but it was real, and it was beautiful. Later that day, they all drove to a small building downtown. The man had asked them to dress nicely, and the kids wore their best clothes, the ones they had picked out themselves weeks ago. The mother wore a simple dress, her hair tied back. Her eyes filled with curiosity. When they walked inside, they saw a sign that read Family Services. "Office, why are we here?" the boy asked. The man smiled and crouched down to their level. "Because today is important." They followed him into a quiet room where a kind-looking woman was waiting behind a desk. She stood up and smiled warmly at the children. "I heard you two have been very brave," she said, "and very loved." The girl nodded. "We already have a dad now?" The woman looked at the man. A tea cleared his throat, his voice soft but firm. "I want to become their legal guardian, with their mother's full blessing. Not to take her place, ever that, but to make sure they are never left in the dark again." The mother stood beside him, proud and strong. "He saved them. He gave us a home, and he respects me. That's all I could ever ask for." The process wasn't fast, but it was done. With care, paperwork was signed. Hands were shaken. And finally, after what felt like hours, The woman smiled and said, "Congratulations. It's official now." The kids jumped up and hugged the man. The girl whispered, "So you're really our dad?" He hugged them both tightly. "I guess I always was." On the way home, the boy said, "Can we celebrate with fries?" "Only if I get extra ketchup," the man joked. They laughed all the way back. That night, small dinner turned into a full celebration. There was cake, badly decorated but made with love. There was music, mostly silly dancing in socks, on the wooden floor, and there were tears, not from sadness, but from joy. The mother stood beside the man as they watched the kids spin and fall onto the couch in laughter. "I used to think people like you didn't exist," she said. "Rich, kind, patient. I used to think people like me didn't need anyone," he replied. She smiled. "Turns out we were both wrong." He nodded slowly. "Turns out we all needed each other." Weeks passed. Life found a rhythm. The children went to school and made new friends. The mother started a small job part-time with help from the man's support. She worked when she could, rested when she needed, and never felt alone anymore. Together, they started something new. A local fund called Visible. It was made to help single parents in crisis, parents who worked hard but still fell through the cracks. They helped families with food, shelter, and hope, because they knew what it felt like to cry for help and be ignored. People in town started to hear the story, not just about the money or the charity, but about the day one man stopped his car because two kids were crying on a sidewalk, about the woman who never gave up, and the children who held everything together with their small but strong hearts. The story spread, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. One evening, the girl came up to the man as he read in the garden. She climbed into his lap and handed him a fresh drawing. It showed four people, a man, a woman, a boy, and a girl, holding hands under a sky full of stars. At the bottom, she had written, "You gave us light when it was dark." He didn't say a word. He just held her close. Because in the end, that's what mattered. Not how the story started, or how broken they once were, but that they chose to heal together, and that they had become something stronger than luck, stronger than money, stronger than fear. They had become a family forever.